And so I started off in coaching in swimming. And so I was thinking, even, very long time ago, if you have swimmers, well, you have, 100-meter pace, you have 400 pace, and you may have, 1500-meter pace as like endurance paces, and then pure sprint, 25s and 50s. And so if we're doing a series of 100s, we weren't necessarily doing them at sprint pace because it was, too long, and we weren't doing them at 1500 pace because we were looking at anaerobic capacity. And so you have to make those adjustments in training relative to those different systems and being able to have adaptation and the appropriate stress and targets, just like running,
but it wasn't there.
Pace, mile pace, 5K pace,
but for cycling was not there actually.
No, people were just using the one metric, which again, one is better than none, but two is better than one, and 3 and 4 just expands that range then, so you can be more effective.
Definitely. And this is the data. This is the power is just giving us how physiologically the athletes are responding to certain stimulus. So So, but how important is for you the skill part versus the physiological part?
Absolutely. So for me in cycling, there's so much opportunity to save energy. So we often say, I've done a lot of work in track cycling and in a team pursuit, we say you can't spend what you don't save. So this expenditure in a team pursuit is when you're on the front driving the team to a faster speed. If you waste energy in an exchange and you miss the back of the group and you have to close up, you're actually pushing more power to close that gap than you were leading the group. And so you've spent energy there that when it comes to your time to the front, you cannot any longer push that higher power, and therefore your team goes slower. So same thing occurs in ITU racing, where your position is in the group, how you corner. If you break and then have to accelerate, well, you've slowed down, and then you have to do a lot more work to regain the same average speed than somebody who could carry speed through that corner faster. And so technical and tactical skill development in cycling is really important. And they're two different things. So there's technical skills of being able to carry speed through turns and, just stay in a group and stay close to a wheel, but not in a dangerous way, not overlapping or being erratic and causing crashes behind you. And then there's the tactical aspect of knowing when to position yourself to gain an advantage over your competitors. So being able to be the first through a corner means generally you can keep a higher speed and you have to do less acceleration. If you're at the back of a group going around a turn and the leaders accelerate a little bit, the impact at the back of the group is much more significant. It's easily double the work at the back for a short period of time to close that little gap from an acceleration at the front. And so the technical and tactical aspects are, I would say, often underdeveloped in a lot of the athletes we see that come into the sport of triathlon, because cycling has a series of different elements, and you can get strong and fit, but still knowing when to use that is something that you have to ride with others and be actually racing with others to have a better understanding of how to do that.
Definitely. And this leads me to another question, and pretty much you already said it, is do you think the coaches are not spending enough time developing something that actually plays a crucial role in the overall result?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's been too much focus exclusively on say, power development and not on technical skill. In 1999, again, this is, I'm old, 21 years ago, I was taking these kids out to a criterium once a week. It was a race on a closed motorway, and we had athletes that crashed, in the beginning, and they learned what not to do in a little bit lower pressure environment than in that key race, at the World Championships, because they had no other legal triathlon races ever before that World Championship. But those kids all we had probably at least 10 or 12 bike races, low priority. They had to learn that. They had to learn those skills, and you know, we had some successes. Nobody won, but we definitely made gains. I think we had actually one of our highest ever men's junior finishes that year, just because of that work. And you had to spend time. You know, we had to do things. It was uncomfortable. It was scary for a lot of the athletes. In that situation, they weren't as good at it. So again, a lot of times athletes that, you know, especially at a national level, maybe, you know, they're used to being some of the best at something, but you take them into a different element and now they're like towards the bottom. There was a bit of mental, you know, challenge to that, and being able to work through it, and just, this is where we're at. We're learning how to do this better, so that you're going to have more success when you get to do it in your event, in the thing that you specialize in. Then you're going to have greater success. It's like, you know, open water swimming. You know, we have athletes that train in the pool and do very little skill work in open water, and even though their pool speed is great, they don't have good finishes because either they're sighting or they get freaked out when there's other people around and they just back off, and you know, now they're a minute behind out of the water when their speed is such that they should be at the front. And so the same thing on the bike. There's athletes who have power developing capacity and have the fitness to be able to be there, but they don't have the skill sets. They can't hold the wheel, so they're not drafting. So now they're pushing more power, staying off the wheel and accelerating, and then they're taking, you know, spending more energy, and the run then is
yeah. Then they finish and everybody's complaining. I don't know what happened. The group was not helping,
and my power was so high. Like my power was super high. I'm like, it was too high.
It was
too much work because you weren't saving.
It shouldn't be that high. So you need to make sure you stay in the group with less number. So with lower numbers actually. Yeah, and I don't think you need a huge space to develop all those skills.
I mean, parking lots. I use parking lots, you know, doing cornering skills and having people in pairs do those cornering drills. That, because you have to respond, and then I do like free form type of, you know, follow the leader. And, you know, maybe I'll be at the front and I'll have 3 or 4 athletes and just be randomly turning, and they have to react and respond. And that develops those skills, and it doesn't require a massive, we don't have a race environment, we don't have a big space, but we can accelerate things in that way.
I must say, when Flora, like some years ago, did a couple of amazing races where the bike was just amazing. She broke away, and then was no chance for the other competitors to be even closer. And that actually allows her to score some good results. Actually,
very much.
Because when you check the run split, it was not that fast, but with the advantage she got on the bike, and the way she was just crossing, you know, on the turns and everything was mesmerizing. It was amazing. Yeah. I don't want to get into like a dirty field, but I'm saying that the female athletes are not as good as the male when it comes to these skills. I don't know if they are more, as you say, they are more conscious, or they're more aware of the dangers perhaps, or they have other priorities, and they just go inside the turns and, you know, all out. But because Flora had a mountain bike background before, right? Joining to triathlon.
She came into the mountain bike, you know, like kind of in the midst. Actually, 2013, she had a foot injury and couldn't compete at the ITU Grand Final, and so we switched over to focusing on. She had a foot injury, so she couldn't run. So we dialed up her swim a little bit and got her on the mountain bike. And I said, you know, the XTERRA World Championships in the end of October would be a great, great something for you to focus on. And so she literally only ran 3 times before that race, you know, from you know, when the injury happened in early September until that race at the end of October. There were 3 runs that she did, and mostly on trails and mostly just running uphill to reduce the stress. But she started riding the mountain bike and doing much more there. Her other aspect of cycling development happened racing with the collegiate cycling team at the University of Colorado when she was an undergrad here in Boulder, and she did the collegiate bike races before she kind of came back into triathlon. So her background, you know, she had been at the 2008 Olympics, but you know, was young and actually had come into it injured. I wasn't coaching her then. I met her actually on a flight though. I was with Taylor Finney, who, he was 18 years old and going to his first Olympic Games. And so we were on the same flight from London to Beijing, and I met Flora there. And then she came to school in January of 2009 at CU Boulder and said, she called me up and said, I'm, going to school at CU now. I don't want to do triathlon. I just want to race bikes though. I was like, oh, that's great. That would be fun. And so she got back into sport, focusing on cycling. And then it wasn't until the next year that she said, I'd like to, try back into some triathlon, and took those steps, and, definitely had success. But it took a little time for her to kind of rediscover the sport. And she used that time in developing a phenomenal skill set in cycling. Her engine maybe isn't the biggest of all those, if I take the top 10 or top 20 women, she had a good engine, but wasn't number 1 or 2, but her skill set is what propelled that difference, the technical and tactical.
Definitely. And this is
the
something,
mountain bike is a place to develop that as well.
What I wanted to ask you, how much do you recommend the use of mountain bike for not only developing the skills, but also tactics, training itself, etc.?
Yeah, there's a lot of gains that can be made in mountain biking. So there's just like the technical riding skills of being able to understand like how to keep your tires, hooked up in different terrain. So, different types of conditions, is really important. So if you think of ITU racing, a lot of times, the courses are pretty nice, the roads are pretty good, but then it rains. Well, if you haven't practiced and trained in the rain and learned how to adjust tire pressure and how to change how you brake and corner, you're not going to have success if it all of a sudden just, you get it on that day and you've never practiced and trained in those type of conditions. So in mountain biking, we see so much more variability in terrain for a given type of course. And so learning how to navigate loose, very slippery terrain, wet, muddy, dry, dusty, and everything in between are skill sets that help you. And so there's elements there that are really helpful. And you could do it on a mountain bike. You could do it, in some cases on a gravel bike or kind of the hybrid road/mountain bike. I do, in some cases, like I've used track cycling and the velodrome to learn a little bit more about tactics, because if you put people on fixed gears, the engine becomes a little bit, if we keep everyone on a similar gear, then it becomes much more tactical than just straight engine work. And so learning how to manage when you spend energy and when you save energy is also another massive element towards that. So for me, there's so many opportunities, and you may have a velodrome, or you may have mountain bike terrain, or you may have different things, and use those tools to help athletes.
Definitely. And since you mentioned it, the tire pressure, I was shocked when, I've been shocked many times when I asked some of because I'm also part of the ASICS World Triathlon team, and I've been attending not only with them, but I've been attending some of the competitions with another athletes. So when I ask them how they prepare the bike, gears for the competition or the tire pressure, etc., they look at you like, what are you talking about? And then I'm like, okay, because I also coach some guys who race in a good level in mountain bike, and they're freaks when it comes to going the week. Yeah, they go the week before to the circuit. They try different cassettes and etc. The pressure, if it's rainy or not. So I'm actually surprised that this knowledge hasn't been transferred to triathlon. And then it comes to, it's my experience in one race in Carlo Vivari. It's in Czech Republic. It's a hill of 300 meters, like 21%, really, really steep one. And then everybody is just going there all out. And I was like, no, it's still not going to happen. So I think it was 21 or 23, DNF. On the run. And then to me it was shocking. Like, guys, it's not all about staying in the group, because this is one of the old beliefs. No, you need to stay on the group. What about if the group is not the one you belong to? So
exactly. If you're over your limit,
then you're gonna pay the price. So it's So how many of research? Because I do believe nowadays with all the technology we have, we can actually simulate any circuit in a world. So how many research you do prior each competition to work on these small details about the gear selection
Absolutely.
or the setting?
So there's elements that I'll take in. So looking at the course, like if there's not a GPS already provided by the race, I go in and I draw out that course so I know what the elevation and percent grade of different things and how long those are. I can then back calculate, based on the power output on that elevation, what the speed is going to be for that athlete, and then look at, okay, for that speed, what gearing will give what RPM? Could they be in the big chain ring, or would they have to shift to the small ring? If they're in the small ring, then what's the, what cassette is going to allow them to hold at least 80 RPM, we'll say. I don't want them to be wrestling at, 50 or 60 RPM with an 1123 cassette when, an 1130 may allow them, in some cases, even to stay in the big chain ring. If they go over to the 27 and a 5227, they may be able to stay in the big chain ring on certain type of rolling courses. And so for me, understanding that course, even if I've never been there, I can do that with maps from my office here. I can look at, any course in the world in some respect. Then there's the aspect of if when the athlete is there, or if I'm at a course, then actually riding the course and getting an understanding of the conditions of the road and tire pressure, then in tire selection. So again, people think like I just have a tire. Well, geez, I often have athletes, you're going to bring a 23, a 25 and a 28 now, and we're going to change, which tire based on what the conditions of the road are. Like a wider tire is actually going to have a lower rolling resistance, and we can lower the pressure. And especially if the corners are, a little more difficult, then having a wider tire at a lower pressure is going to allow us to carry that speed better. And, it's not necessarily going to be as much, optimal aerodynamics, even though certain wheels now are even being developed to be very fast with the 28 mil tire. And so, again, these are concepts that 3 years ago, very few people were considering in any way. And I still think there's not enough consideration to those elements that have a significant impact on performance.
Definitely. I can speak from my experience that when you raise this kind of questions I'm not talking about age groupers, I'm talking about guys who are aiming for the games. They look at you like, that's too advanced. And to me, it was like, no, that matters, actually. That's positions at the end of the race. So
absolutely,
you're killing yourself doing only the training, but then with these small details that doesn't require much effort. It's just knowledge, and
exactly. Each of those things. So and if you add up, different elements from the tire, the rolling resistance, and certain aspects of drag, aerodynamic drag, but then also looking at drivetrain, clean drivetrain, and a faster chain, and some of the bearings and things, you can be talking, 10, 15, 20 watts at a steady state effort, which again, on average, if I said you can save 15 or 20 watts by paying attention to these things, or you're going to have to spend 15 or 20 watts more. That's, again, you can't spend what you don't save. So for me, I want to save where I can so I can spend, or what I have to spend, I can spend it better investment.
Definitely. If you had to recommend any resources or websites, etc., for further knowing about these topics, what would they be? A part of yours that I saw that already. You have a lot of good stuff in there, and also some references. I was checking it. But what kind of what tools and resources would you recommend?
Yeah, there's a couple books out on bicycle racing tactics. Just reading through those books can be helpful. The thing that's even better is actually watching some different types of races. So you can go, on Triathlon Live and go through, I think everyone has access to that now. So you can watch previous races and watch and get some tactical what's happening in those races, but watching some bike races as well of different formats, some cyclocross races, some road races, criteriums, which are a little more common in the US, but seeing how those different races are conducted and how those tactics can play out is a really big learning opportunity. from just taking it in that way. So again, there's certain reading resources, a couple different books, Thomas Pren, I'm trying to think the other one for bicycle racing tactics, but then there's other online resources looking at, bicycle tire rolling resistance. There's a few different things out there, and just studying. You don't have to know everything. You just have to sometimes know where to look a little bit. So doing some searches and I think there's a few different places where, you can uncover a little something here and there, but watching old races has a good one.
Yeah. I live in the south of Spain, in Granada, and I have the high altitude training center just half an hour away from my home. So I go there quite often. And when I do the camps, I always say that I learned more having beers after the competitions, congresses, and hanging up with coaches everywhere, like when you are in camp, etc., than at the uni, because the uni gives you the introduction a little bit, but but you learn by talking with people. Relax. So and this is something that I believe the situation is rare, so because we are isolated and that's it. But whenever you can, and I mean, I never I have to say, for all the coaches I reach to join this kind of live chat, just nobody has taken it down, and you guys are sharing so much valuable information that I do believe for most of the guys who are listening would have never reached if they were at home or not going to the races. So to me, it's just reaching out people. Send an email, volunteer.
Exactly.
Also.
My first with 96, I wrote a letter and just said, do you have any interns, or could I come out and help for a week or two? And like, sure, you can come on out. And just, you have to put it out there.
Definitely.
Reach out.
I did the Norwegian head coach, the national team coach, was telling me that he has never received any request for any coaches out there to spend some time with them and see what they do. And to me, that was shocking. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that because I actually see them training here, and I have a good relationship with them, so I know what they're doing, etc. But I'm privileged because I have this place there. But I cannot understand how the people is not taking these human resources available, rather than books are okay, but having these chats also clarifies you more info than the books itself. So
another thing is reaching outside of the sport of triathlon. If you have some cyclists or teams, coaches that are in your area, learning from them, some swim coaches, taking some of that information if they're willing to share. Running, if you're at a running track and there's a group of runners, just asking a few questions and going and learning from different sports that are similar, but you can carry over things, is also really an undervalued aspect too.
Yeah, you can learn the good and what not to do. So because also sometimes you go to places like, okay, no, that's not what I consider is the good thing. So it's really, I think it's really important, and the novice coaches, or those that want to make a career in this business, are not taking the full advantage of. So I don't know if now they're just gonna bomb you with emails saying, we want to go to Colorado and just learn from you. But I apologize if I just tiger the bottom.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we'll see. I've worked with some people that have come for periods of time, and teach them what I can.
You might need a hand just building your new garden and etc. So like the Karate Kid movie. No?
Exactly.
So you need to first polish cars before you go into the that's it, exactly.
Paint on.
So it was really good having you on board. I really appreciate you took the time to join and share so much valuable information. And just hope that everything goes back to the whatever normal is now. Or
new normal before.
Or new normal thing. Yeah, and I hope to catch up with you, not through the screen, but with a good glass of beer. Yeah, somewhere. Okay. So
got
Have a
water
good day.
since it's still early, but beer at some point.
Perfect. Have a good day, and we definitely stay in touch.
Thank you. Take care,
Bye-bye.
Vincent.